Bienvenue, welcome once again to another one of our live streams. Today I'm very pleased to have on the screen, in the studio as it were, with me, Hamish McLay, of course, of Search Convey, Juliet Baboolal, who is a specialist legal expert in the property area, and Chris Gilsenan, of course, which most of you will remember from Route Home, who is a property investor, has dealt with this and seen it through both sides. And we are here running something which I like to call Property Quorum. The idea is we're going to mind our P's and Q's. We're going to identify the issues that are facing people from all ends of this property triangle. And I'm going to start off firstly by welcoming all of you to the screen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Not at all. So let's start off with Hamish. Why are we here today?
Well, I think, as we've suggested in the past, it's a way of trying to keep people aware of what's going on in the property industry. And today, particularly, I think we can demonstrate that collaboration is a very, very important part of what goes on. And when we can look at the world of conveyancing from that particular perspective, and today we sort of demonstrate with two experts who know a significant amount of what goes on in the background. In view of what I do, which is working as a collaborator, is very simple and straightforward. The two that we meet today, meet up with today, both Juliet and sort of Chris, they have an in-depth knowledge of their particular sort of area of expertise, but also, naturally enough, they are wise enough to know an awful lot of what else goes on. But I think what we want to be able to do is to just try and reinforce the fact that anybody that's working within property, anybody who wants to be buying or even selling for that matter, if they're working with the right people, it does make a big difference.
It is critical.
The right people.
Okay. And what I was going to say very quickly was that it was out of conversations that Hamish and I had, and Chris and I had, that came this concept that we need to really reinforce people's ideas, often that have perhaps are on the edge, based on misapprehensions and misunderstandings of perhaps things like the recent budget, and that has thrown things into sharp relief. Chris, any thoughts?
Yeah, there's been a few little golden nuggets in the budget that have come through. Hamish clocked one that I hadn't even spotted, that he was recently talking to me about the permitted development rights to bring single-storey houses, or potentially convert single-storey houses into two flats, two abodes. So yeah, the cutting edge of the budgetary side of things, it's the system is always in flux, it's always changing, and actually knowing and working with people who can assess the situation and provide a different insight, professional insight, it's worth its weight in gold. So just having these, for example, these conversations with Hamish, it's just opened up another potential avenue that even I hadn't considered, and I've got 15 years experience in the industry, so I'm learning something every day.
Glad to hear it. Juliet, I just want to talk from your perspective. I mean, there, with these constant little budgetary changes and changes in what can or can't be done around the edges, is this not confusing the common man and woman in the street?
Absolutely. It's very confusing, because at the rate at which things are happening and the information out there, you can Google, something that happened, and you may get a whole bunch of incorrect, information. So you've really got to check the source. And I think one of the things that this podcast, or the values, that we add value by dealing with real live issues that present themselves to people in the property world, whether you are, a new investor or a first-time buyer, whatever it is, it's designed give you that information, because once you're armed with that information, then you find that there's less things to bite you in the long run. If you haven't done your homework, the likelihood is, things will creep up towards the end. So things like the permitted development, it all sounds wonderful, but there is a little tool called an Article 4 direction. And what that means is that the local authorities have the right to restrict certain development rights. So one of the things that people who are looking to, take full advantage of this permitted development, one of the things they need to do is to actually check with their local authority and look at, what potential restrictions there might be in relation to that. So it's really important to look at the pros and cons, the advantages, disadvantages, but also to look at the practical elements of it, because the information out there isn't as clear cut and it's happening so quickly that it can be a bit confusing. So that's what we're here for. We're here to alleviate those issues, those fears that people might have, and just add value to the property industry.
All right. Well, look, I'm so glad to have you all here. There seems to be a little bit of a mire, and we are, let's face it, coming up to the end of the year, which is all a bit teetery. Nobody quite knows what they're going to do next. So a little bit scared about making that next move. But for people like you, Chris, this is in many ways where the golden nuggets are readily found, right?
I love this time of year, yeah, because most people are mentally winding down. In fact, a lot of people in the industry have already checked out. So this time of year, especially halfway through December, we get loads of transactions done. It's a very strong time for us. We generally try and go against the grain and do what the masses are not doing.
I mean, I don't want to give away your family secrets, as it were, but I'm appealing to all property experts out there. Don't necessarily discount this time of year. There's so much still that could be done. And not only that, but as you say, a lot of people have down tools or relaxing or just pulling back from the edge. That leaves a lot more room, wouldn't you say? Juliet, could a lot of work be done around this time, even in the legal trade, just to complete everything?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what you've got, if you've got a development and you've got contractors on site needing to be paid, people are going to need to have drawdowns. And yes, the lenders are really busy. So while people are, trying to get into the Christmas spirit, there's a lot happening. There's always a lot. There's that summer pipeline that needs to be completed, and people are looking to complete in this quarter. So there's a lot. I mean, I remember one Christmas we were about to shut shop and I was in the office waiting for funds because I knew we had to complete it on that day, because the following day would have been Christmas, the bank would have been closed, and we needed to get the monies out. So yeah, things can be quite busy at this time of year, irrespective of people trying to have the best of both, their working life and making the most of the Christmas time. Right.
So Hamish, now searching is the one place I know within the property jungle where things can disappear up their own fundament for weeks, months, or years if they're not done correctly. Is this a time when you can really make headway?
Yes and no. I think one of the advantages of what the way we actually work things is getting that information through people who have local knowledge, and by using those, they will find the quickest way through. And if there is a quick way, because we do get the information coming through, some councils are going to be closing at the end.
That's what I was thinking.
And they will not reopen until January. And worst of all, we've got some work going on with Land Registry who are taking work away from the councils. And there's a couple of councils, for example, that come the new year, Land Registry are going to be responsible for the land charges information. Now, that is going to impact quite seriously on any poor souls.
Name and shame. Come on now.
Off the top of my head, I can't actually sort of think of the two.
Sorry. Sorry.
Unfortunately, I'm very, very, very busy. Like Juliet's sort of suggesting, there are things that can be done, and I'm setting up really a couple of projects. One which is we're on the move with a brand new client this week, for example, and first week in January we're in with another new client. So there's lots that I am actually sort of doing. However, with care we can actually do things and we can move sort of quite quickly. But it will be on that particular council area. I think most people will have things in place where they're going to require searches. If not, they can always ask the question, can we get this cancelled? Because some information we can get within 24 hours. Unfortunately, some information we would say, and this is how councils work, they'll say, well, it's 24 working days. Now, 24 working days from today, you don't know how many days they're taking out for Christmas, so they can slow things down.
Right.
However, we can find a way with councils that we can cooperate with. We can't cooperate with all of them, sadly.
So overall, guys, can I have a consensus? Is this a good time to be pushing forward with a property purchase? Or is this a time when you should rest on your laurels, recuperate, restitute, and then start again in the beginning of the new year? Chris, I can hear you got words on the edge of your lips. Go on.
I think you need to factor in that there are going to be providers that any property transaction is not smooth. It doesn't run that way because there are so many moving parts, and so many people that you have to bring to the table that you need to rely on. Some of those you have no control if they're going to take some downtime over Christmas. So you just got to factor it in and budget for it. Juliet already mentioned the negotiations with your lenders. Having them on board is so critical. So I feel for your client, Juliet, who you took it right to the wire with on Christmas Eve. That's remarkable. But yeah, that's not really a position you ideally want to be in. You got to factor in these scenarios, and you got to factor in this downtime. The property market is very, very seasonal, just like any other industry, I guess. August, or late summer and Christmas are a particular challenge for picking up transactions and completing on transactions. But to answer your question, Gareth, it's always a good time to get into the market, to take that next step, to move that next transaction forwards. So I wouldn't discourage people from doing that. So just factor it in.
So any last thoughts before we move on, Juliet, on what can be done successfully at this time of year? You know, I feel for so many of these domestic property deals, which can get completely mired up as the legal profession decides to put its feet up, put the socks on, and start smoking their pipes.
Well, it really depends on who in the legal profession you've gone to. That's the first thing, because for me, it's all about meeting clients' expectations. And if someone said to me, "Look, I absolutely had to complete this time of year, this month," it would happen. But you need to manage expectations, and you need to be realistic. And the key thing that Chris has said is that you've got lots of moving parts, and you're just not in control of some of those moving parts. For example, if someone's doing refinance, the incoming lender is going to want to know that they are the registered proprietor of that property. And the land registry are taking anywhere between sort of 3 and 6 months, even longer, to get office copies, get transfers registered. So you can call them, you can get the application expedited, and it still doesn't make sense in terms of you having that up-to-date office copy sent to your new lender. And so that's something that's just not within your control. So for me, it's about managing expectations. It's about doing everything that you can do as far as you can to get something over the line. But there are those blocks where you're just not in control. So it is doable. It is absolutely doable. There are some people who will just accept, for example, indemnity searches on everything. And then you've got an easy ride at that point, because you can simply put a policy on risk, and there's no way third party. But it's hit and miss this time. Yeah, I would not, again, discourage anyone. If you want to complete, it's completely doable. It's important that you choose the right legal practitioner, because that makes a real big difference. But I always say honesty is best, and full disclosure is really important. So giving your client, managing their expectations. Look, if there is an impasse and you're not able to complete in December for whatever reason, then the client, the lender, everyone within that equation needs to know. And that's sort of the best policy.
Well, look, okay. So to me, that sounds like the elements of good news. It doesn't sound like we should be all hanging our heads in shame that we didn't get our skates on early in the year to start moving these property deals along. It is doable. However, there may be challenges ahead. So what I'd like from each one of you, if possible, before we wind this podcast up, if Chris, if you can give me an eye to where we are sitting ready in Q1.
Oh, what? Sorry.
Quarter one next year. I'm talking about the we're winding up to the end of this one, and no doubt people are going to be slowing up. So January is potentially a slow month, but certainly beginning of Q1 there's going to be movement, is there not?
I think we'll see some more movements downwards on interest rates, certainly on lenders' interest rates. BOE may also drop it a little bit more. I think February you'll see a lot of activity. So I think all the auction houses, I know all the auction houses are already priming all their listings for February
Right.
because people will be starting to look in January. So that's a good time, and auctions are still a good opportunity for many to pick up a decent deal.
Read the pack, I always say to everyone if they're talking about read the pack.
Read the
Juliet,
pack, give it to solicitor.
Juliet, some pearls of wisdom about Q1, particularly say February, March time. What are we talking about?
Look, I think it's a good time to invest. I just think people need to do their homework, keep their eyes on the ball. There's so many resources out there, and that's what we're here for, to guide people. But there's so many resources, so that you should be able to make an informed decision in terms of whatever you choose to do. And it's so important sometimes to just pull back and have a look, an overall review of what's happening, rather than just jump in. I know so many people that go to, for example, they exchange and they haven't got a clue as to where their funding's coming from, and that can cause so doing your research, doing your homework, that's, it takes a lot of the anxiety out of the process. And that would be my biggest advice. Wherever the market goes, there's so much information, just follow it, and follow our podcast as well.
That would be lovely. Thank you very much. Yes. Hamish, before I jump to you, I believe certainly, although the UK property market, as Chris has told me a number of times, and I really believe it, is overall one of the most flush property markets in the world, in the sense that there is definitely money to be made here. It still seems to be, with the current government, built on shifting sands. We're not entirely sure the minutiae or the stuff that it isn't perhaps so obvious what's going on. Any thoughts yourself, Hamish, of what we should be taking note of in Q1?
Well, I think it's been spoken. I mean, Juliet mentioned it, and Chris has sort of mentioned it. Any time is a good time, and in fact, sooner rather than later, because at the moment, and Chris, the lenders, many of the lenders now are competing with each other to bring down the interest rates, way ahead of what the Bank of England sort of are doing. So I do think there is an impetus there, and as you and I have spoken about over the last several occasions when we've been live, there is a positive nature about what's actually sort of going on. There are a number of properties out there at the moment, and basically, if anybody wants to move, it's a great time because they've got more option of choice.
But it just feels a bit like it's a race to the bottom with the competitiveness between lenders at the moment.
Well, I don't think we can actually. They're never going to do that, are they? They're lenders after all, and we're not going to have a repeat situation of what we had in the early noughties.
No,
however, there's a positive air. There's a positive air, and I think we can ignore much of what the media's speaking about in terms of the sort of the spirit is definitely sort of available if anybody wants to sort of take hold of it, and it's a good time of year to be doing it as well. I'm really looking forward to the first quarter. Get stuff moving this side of Christmas and get it in place is a great idea.
Wonderful. Look, all I can do is thank each one of you for coming on this inaugural P's and Q's, mind your P's and Q's, the Property Quorum, where we get to talk about stuff from all ends of the marketplace. If anyone is watching this and would like to come on, perhaps as a little extra commentary, I certainly would entertain that. But until next time we do this, I'm not sure. Are we doing this weekly or monthly? How's everyone feeling? You see, this is how new this is. I love this. Perhaps every 2 weeks. I think we should cut out next week, and perhaps just after Christmas, in between New Year, we'll do an extra one. Just take the temperature of what's going on. But until the next one, thank you everyone, and happy Christmas. safe mental health, and please don't get yourself into a frazzle over the property market. It's going to be there whether you like it or not on the other side. Thank you, each one of you.